In this video, we're going to give a 1,000-foot overview of the 10 stages of the $100 million scaling roadmap brought to you by Acquisition.com. And so you'll see where you're at, and you can watch further videos that deep dive into each level later in the training. You'll also notice that the deeper the stage of scaling, so down this way, the more complexity of the level and things. So the trainings that are over here tend to be a little bit shorter. There's just fewer things you have to do when the business only has a handful of people. When you have hundreds of employees, there's a lot more stuff that's going on, and so it should make sense that the trainings are gonna be a little bit more in depth. So before we dive into each of the stages, just as an overview, I just wanna double state the fact that we are going to go in a lot more detail. And so as we review each of these really high level, you'll probably be wanting more information at each level. But it's hard to actually contextualize all of the things that you need to do to scale if we go into details and kind of open the drawers at every one of these implementations that we have to do when we cover the problems and the solutions. You'll forget where you're even at in this thing. And so this video is just to give you this really good idea of where you're at, where you're going, how this whole thing fits together. And then everything after this is going to be specific to you, because you should only go into the trainings that are relevant to your current stage of scaling. Let's just start with a quick overview of each of the stages, and we'll start at stage 0, which is improvise.
So at improvise, your headcount is none. There's nobody in the company, and your role is actually to be a researcher, right? And the reason that you want to be a researcher is because you know nothing and you have nothing. And the leadership structure is just you. You're all by yourself. Number of companies here is none because you're not a company yet. It's just you. And so at this stage, what does your product look like? Product is nothing, because you ain't got nothing to sell, right? And so to graduate from that stage, you want to make something free to give away. Now, how does that tie in with marketing? Marketing, nobody knows about your stuff, because just a minute ago, you didn't have any stuff, right? And so in order to graduate marketing, you've got to tell people about the free stuff that you have, right? And now, how do you sell the free stuff, right? Well, you don't know how to sell. So in order to graduate, you have to get people to try your stuff for free. What about customer service, okay? You don't actually have any customers to service. And so what you want to do is, if you can accomplish selling your free stuff, then you can service your free customers for free, which brings us to IT, okay? IT, you actually don't have any tech. And so in order to graduate from this level, you got to get a computer, you got to have internet, you got to have a microphone, phone, email, whatever it may be, so that you can sell and deliver your free stuff. That's what you want to get to use. Now, after IT, we have recruiting. Because it's just you actually just don't know how to work at this stage. And so what you do is you recruit yourself to work. And so a lot of this stage is learning how to increase your work capacity so that you can do many things at the same time. Which brings us to HR, which is you're unprotected. You treat yourself like the business. And so you have no separation between your personal assets and your business assets. So you would like to create an entity that separates these two things from each other. Which brings us lastly to finance, okay? Your personal money is the business money. So at this point, what we want to do is we want to get a business bank account. We want to put money in it. We want to also start to write off expenses to save on taxes, which is a great benefit you have at this point in time once you separate those two things. So the bottom line of improvise is that nothing is happening, right? You are truly starting at nothing. In fact, you could say you're in the wantrepreneur stage when you start here, and you just want to get people to try your stuff for free. And so that is improvise. And now we will move to monetize.
Here, headcount is still 1, but here you graduate when you make your first buck. So now you're officially a company. All right, so your role here is you're a starter. Leadership, it's still just you. And now you get to officially be a company. So you're one of 30 million companies, at least in the US. And to give you some kudos here, only 9% of people start a business. And so you should feel proud of the fact that, hey, you're already in the top 10% of people just by starting a business of your own. Now, what are the constraints around product? In the beginning, not good enough to sell yet, right? And so to graduate, you got to fix it until it's good enough. You make your V1 product. And that's where we got some of the feedback from the free stage from before. Marketing, no one knows that you have paid stuff for sale. And so to graduate, you have to tell people about your paid stuff and then sign up for free ad credits online. So those are easy, free, cheap ways to get your advertising out there. Sales, you still don't know how to sell at this point because you're graduating by just getting your first sale here, right? And so all we have to do is just use good results from free people to sell paid people and just offer to solve their problems in exchange for money. We're not talking about processing, scripting, or anything like that. You're just trying to make your first buck. All right, customer service. At this level, the constraint is free customers aren't using it or like it. And so to graduate, you have to figure out all the hidden costs, which is why don't they like it and why aren't they using it, by simply talking to them. IT at this level is that you have no basic software tools or social media. And so to graduate, figure out the free software that you need by joining free groups and reading online forums, aka use the Google. Recruiting, at this level, you don't know how to do something or have the time to do it. You're just getting started, right? So you reach out to people who you know to help you. This is where you reach out to friends and families, that guy you know who does that thing. Like, you reach out to anybody you can, use freelancer platforms if you need to, just to kind of fill that initial skill or time gap. Human resources, HR, you pay money to freelancers to get work done, and you don't get what you want. Sad face for you. And so you have to create basic vendor agreements and set expectations. And then finance at this level is that you have no way to collect money. And so in order to actually make your first sale, you have to have a way to collect money. And so you want to set up a payment processor and run your first payment and get your first deposit in your business bank account. And so the bottom line at this level is that your business makes no money. And so what do we have to do? We have to make our first sale. That is how you graduate from monetize. And so we just wrapped up the second stage. See, we're moving through these. So stage one is monetize, and now we move on to advertise.
Advertise. Headcount, still one, just you. We're all alone out here, okay? Your role is you're a doer. And that's the thing at this stage, is you want to make sure that you are in the dirt. You are not too good for anything. Your leadership structure is you don't have leaders. You have freelancers who are doing work with you and for you. And the number of companies here, again, is you're still within the 30 million because they do not count freelancers as employees. And so at this point in time, your product, right? Paying customers have higher expectations, and your product is unreliable and not good enough. To graduate, you want to fix it until it is good enough in an unscalable way. And so if that means you have to jump over the moon for your customer, you're going to jump over the moon for your customer, whatever you got to do. Which brings us to marketing, okay? At this point, lead flow is inconsistent because you're inconsistent. And so in order to get consistent lead flow, you need to live by the rule of 100 and prioritize advertising daily. Well, that means 100 calls daily, 100 dials daily, 100 minutes on social media daily, 100 minutes of posting daily, whatever it must be, you do 100 of anything daily to consistently advertise, which then leads into sales. All right, at this point, sales conversions are inconsistent because you still just started learning how to sell. And so what you want to do is nail down a script for setting and closing, okay? Where we have a formula, we will go into greater detail, called the closer framework, which leads into customer service, okay? Paid customers have higher standards and now they're complaining, okay? And so in order to graduate here, you've got to learn how to deal with disappointed customers, which we go over in the Angry Boat in the longer video for this, as well as how to get testimonials from happy customers, which is the Epiphany Bridge script, which then goes into IT. You actually have no money to afford tech. And so what we want to do to graduate is use free technology. Yes, it exists. And get free trials and credits for starter softwares, right? Starter CRMs, starter softwares, use free trials, extend those free trials, because right now you still don't have that much money. Brings us to recruiting. At this point, you have too much work for part-timers, okay? So they're starting to get overwhelmed. So what you want to do is try your best to convert those part-timers into full-timers. You want to make public posts or run ads on job boards to get full-timers for the part-timers who don't want to convert. Then we've got HR, okay? You have full-time employees, but they're actually contractors. So you treat your contractors like full-time employees, okay? And so what you want to do is try and convert those part-timers into full-timers and set them up as W-2s, and then convert your contractors into 1099s to make sure that you are compliant. Lastly, we've got finance, right? You don't keep track of your money or have a way to pay taxes. You don't know what's coming in, you don't know what's got to go out. So you want to spin up a QuickBooks equivalent, you want to save up for taxes on a quarterly basis, and you want to check your bank account daily because what you measure gets managed. The bottom line of this phase is that new customers are inconsistent, okay? And you want to let more people know about your stuff, which brings us to the third stage, which is stabilize.
All right, so at the stabilize, we're at now 1 to 4 employees. So we've hired at least one person in addition to you. So you actually have a full-time employee, and this goes all the way up to 4. Your role now is you're a trainer because you got all these people in here. You got to train them up because they don't know what they're doing. And you're probably calling your friends, your family, the people in your network to try and get this going. Your leadership structure is, these are your first full-time hires. The number of companies here, and this is where there's a big kudos, only 24% of businesses have at least one employee outside of the founder, right? And so the vast majority of businesses are non-employers. And so pretty cool that just by making that one move, you move so much forward in terms of percentiles. All right, so the constraints is at this level. So for product is that you don't have time to fix everything that's wrong, right? Because things are starting to pick up. And so to graduate, you fix the one thing that they complain the most about. For marketing, leads aren't buying fast enough. So you kind of used up your friends and family they're trying to sell. And so now newer audiences are colder. They're like, I don't know who you are. And so what we do is we add long-term nurturing via emails and or content. For sales, because you're starting to do that, you start wasting time with bad leads and you don't have enough time to talk to good leads. And so to graduate here, you decide on basic qualifications. Who is supposed to buy your thing? And then you outsource setting and or calendaring so that you have more time to be on the phone with good prospects, not texting back and forth to figure out times. The next thing for customer service is that your new customers feel lost because your old customers, they've been there a little bit, they knew who you were. These people, they didn't get that same onboarding because it might not be you anymore. All right. And so to graduate, you have to learn how to onboard customers properly, which also means consistently. In terms of IT, you have a bunch of different tools that you don't use because you got all those free trials. Some of them started converting money. You're like, wait, I don't use all these things, or at least I don't use them at the same level. And so to graduate, you figure out the useful ones, you extend the free trials, getting discounts and credits online, which you can look for, and you cut the rest. And you just want to make sure that at the end of this, you just have a basic sales pipeline. How do people come in? How do they schedule? How do they show? How do they convert? Just a basic pipeline. Even on a piece of paper, wouldn't matter, but you just want to have some sort of predictable way of knowing how customers are coming in. Recruiting, at this level, you're not getting quality applicants because you're brand new, you don't have a reputation. And so to graduate, just learn how to write a job description and review resumes. That's all you got to do at this level. HR, you're not withholding employee taxes and fees. So get a payroll provider so all the taxes and fees by state are handled. Because listen, this is the last thing you want to do is have a lien on your account that shows up because you didn't pay your payroll. All right, so easy things, but a lot of people are paying people via Venmo and PayPal and checks. Like, it's a mess. Go by the book, go legit. Finance, people are getting paid informally, like I just said. And so you have to set up the processing, get basic bookkeeping in place, and you have to start managing invoices and payments because you start paying vendors, customers start paying you. You got to make sure that that's being managed. Otherwise, you have this money that's sitting in your email and vendors who don't want to do their work, and all of a sudden your business stops because you're not paying people. So the bottom line is there's too much for one person to do. And so what you got to do here, you got to get help. You got to get your first couple of people on board. And so we just wrapped up the fourth stage, which is stage 3. Stabilized. The reason it's offset is because the first one's 0 because you don't have a company yet. And so then we move on to the next stage.
Prioritize. The headcount now is 5 to 9, so you've got a little team. Your role is you're a manager, so you are having to manage the output of those people on your team. And your leadership structure is you have your first layer, right? Because it's your first team. Now, the number of companies here, pretty cool. Only 3 million. So think about that. Out of all the things you see on social media, there are only 3 million companies that even have 5 to 9 people on their team. What does this look like when it comes to product? Okay, product right now, you said yes to anybody that would give you money. And so you have feedback from so many different customers, right? It's creating too many different product directions. So what we want to do is we want to specialize the product. We want to turn it into a V2, right? And we want to price it to serve a niche down avatar. The problem is most people go wide right now when they've got to go deep. Which brings us to marketing, right? We have too many unqualified leads, especially as we specialize our product. And so we want to make better free stuff and more creative so that we can boost volume. Okay, we want to add qualification and friction so that the extra volume self-selects. At this point, a lot of people think they have to start up a second channel when in reality, they're just not doing a great job with the first. Which brings us to sales, right? Speed to contact drops. And you have no metrics around sales to make sure that nothing else drops. And so what you want to do at this point is you want to track basic KPIs manually on a spreadsheet. Okay, contact rate, schedule rate, show rate, offer, close, cash collected. I'm thinking Google Sheets tracking, okay? This doesn't need to be a CRM at this point. You just need to have the numbers. Customer service. Right now, we have no metrics for customer service or customer success. And so we want to install tracking KPIs. And we want to record and centralize notes for each customer in a CRM. So we just want to have metrics and then have a place to store the metrics and have a place to store notes so that your team can talk to each other about the customers. Which brings us to IT. Your new team is not using everything. Okay, and so what we want to do is get everybody on the same platforms. Protect your passwords, get project management tools and communication tools. Think Monday.com, Asana, Slack, LastPass. Those are the things you want to get in place right now so everyone is using the same basic software to communicate and use for work. Which brings us to recruiting. We are wasting time with bad candidates. The reason is because we need to learn how to conduct a proper interview and check references, okay? So at this point, you need to step it up and learn a little bit more about the recruiting process, which brings us to HR, okay? Employees don't know how to behave. So you've got a few employees now, you're adding more in. They don't know. What's a PTO? How do I do a sick day? Oh, hey, I'm not coming in tomorrow. Hey, what are you wearing? There's all these things they start doing and they don't really know how to act. And so you want to install an employee handbook and policies to teach people how to behave. And lastly, we've got finance. Your cash flow is lumpy because you're lumpy due to one-time expenses, okay? And so you find out that businesses cost money to run. And so what you want to do is you want to get in place a profit and loss statement and cash flow statement set up and basic business insurance, okay? So at this point, you've got people on your team. You want to make sure that you're protected. So watch the money and get some protection. The bottom line is that you are trying to be everything to everyone. You need to niche down and pick one customer, your best customers, to serve. So we just wrapped up prioritize, and now we're going to move on to productize.
So at the productize level, we got 10 to 19 employees, so we're into that next tier. You now are a director. You kind of have like 1.5 layers. So you've got your first maybe 2 managers that are on the team managing a couple people each, and then you still have some direct reports yourself. The number of companies here is 2.4 million. The constraints around product are that customers have nothing else to buy from you in turn. So you have this new niche down product that serves this better avatar, but now that you've niched it down, they're like, okay, well, what else do I have to buy? There's nothing. So to graduate, you connect your CS, your customer success, to product so that you can figure out what else they want so you can make something new to sell. This is why productize is the theme of the stage. So once we have our second product, marketing-wise, qualified leads are too expensive and cap your ability to advertise. So once we spend more money on our niche down marketing with our new offer and our new higher LTV to CAC because we have a second product, we can afford to spend more. And so we can start scoring our leads, get attribution in place, and a good CRO process, which is conversion rate optimization. And if all that sounds like a little bit meatier, we go super deep on this when we go into the deep video for this stage. All right, sales at this level. Customers get sold with unrealistic expectations and refunds and bad reviews become an issue. And so to graduate, create sales aids and materials. So think VSLs, webinars, like presentations, things like that. You want to install weekly game tape between customer service, sales, and marketing. So this is basically a cross-departmental meeting so that everybody's on the same page of what are we promising and what are we delivering. And this then leads into a feedback metric with NPS and CSAT, so Net Promoter Score, Customer Satisfaction Score, and refund rate. And if you want to get a little bit sexier, buy rep, as in buy sales rep. Customer service at this level, customers come in with unrealistic expectations and they get inconsistent answers. And so to graduate, you have to build a proper CS playbook to onboard and train team to answer questions the same way. And so weekly game tape review is also kind of across all of these departments that are happening, but it is that important. And you begin having a customer ascension path. So IT at this level is employees are using their personal hardware, right? So you're at 10-ish, and maybe some of them came in with laptops and they're just using their own phones to work leads. Because let's be real, you probably didn't have as much money at that point, and you're like, oh gosh, this is a problem. Somebody just left with their phone and their computer and they have all my leads or they have all my media, right? No bueno. And so because of that, the company provides company-owned and controlled hardware and software, and you'll need to build a basic dashboard and reporting system. Recruiting at this level is that you have trouble finding higher level roles and managers. And so to graduate, you create deliberate promotions from within rather than the Peter principle, which we go in depth on, which is basically you promote people to their point of incompetence. You want to avoid that, and we'll show you how. And then you want to incentivize employee referrals equal to your cost to acquire talent, which is CAT. Just like CAC, cost to acquire customers, you have CAT, cost to acquire talent. And so you have to be willing to spend to get the best talent. Human resources, you're firing people incorrectly and that exposes you. And so to graduate, you have to create termination policies and process because at this point, you probably will start letting some people go because you'll realize that you didn't know how to hire people the right way. And so you got some bad eggs. All right, finance, you don't know how much money you can invest into growth. You got some extra cash, you want to grow more, but you're like, how much? And so to graduate, you make a budget, you save for big expenses, and you have simple financial forecasting so that you can begin keeping track of tax write-offs. And so it's like, I know we're gonna have this big event, so let's start budgeting for that, and let's start writing off some of these bigger expenses because that's gonna ultimately lower your tax bill. And if you have more cash left over, you can invest more into growth. And so the bottom line at this level is that you're not making enough money per customer. You have low LTV to CAC. This is why we productize. This is why we start the second product. And so you make and sell your second premium product to your customers and have all of these downstream impacts that get you to the next level. And so we just wrapped up the sixth stage, which is stage 5, productize, which moves us into the next stage, stage 6, optimize.
All right, optimize. This is when our headcount is getting up there. We are 20 to 49 people. Your role is you are an actual leader now, right? You have people to lead. You have 2 full layers of managers underneath of you. So usually that looks like a director level and a manager level. The number of companies here is only 2.1 million companies. And so it is definitely an accomplishment to get to this point if you are there in your business. Now, what does this look like from a product standpoint? At this point, improving 2 products slows down improvements. So you've got 2 things to focus on. You've got split attention. And so in order to graduate, you need to install incremental product improvement processes for both products, right? It's almost like a product pipeline for each of these things with separate owners able to oversee them. Going into marketing, marketing looks like ads are not converting as well to colder traffic. As your company expands, you sell more people in the market, the people become colder and colder, and so CAC goes up. And so in order to combat this, you want to implement an ad assembly process to increase volume, which is something we're going to go into more depth in the video itself. Going into sales. Sales are closing efficiency on the core product drops, and it becomes very inconsistent. Refunds go down, but so do closes. So it's like, great, we're not losing money, but we're also not making more money. And so what we want to do is we want to install sales training systems, individual coaching, and a team cadence to increase closing efficiency and to make sure that we get consistent. That brings us to customer service. Churn increases due to the volume and the new product. And so what we want to do to combat the churn and to graduate is to create a customer segmentation by cohort and activation points. So essentially we want to segment our customers so that we can figure out how to reduce churn for each type of customer. And we want to make sure that we understand how to activate, aka engage, the customers that we do have. Bringing us to IT. New people are coming in. Old people are leaving with IP, with data, with access, right? And so we need to install cybersecurity, malware, password protection from and for employees, and proper onboarding and offboarding procedures, okay? It's all about protection because you got more people coming in and more people going out. Speaking of people, recruiting. The number and types of roles that exceed your current network, okay? So everyone you've reached out to already has a job or they're not what you're looking for. And so you have to learn to headhunt higher level roles and add in multiple interview filtering for different skills. Okay, so you're gonna learn, how am I gonna find people that can be a head of finance for a 50-person company or a 35-person company? How do I find a director of marketing? And how do I make sure I interview so that I get the right people? Which brings us to HR, right? You can't get higher level talent because they expect a full compensation package, benefits, bonus, retirement, etc. So you wanna set up benefits, retirement, and an advanced compensation plan so that you can attract that talent that you need to grow your company. And finishing off with finance, you are spending money to grow, but you're not growing and money is missing. Where the heck is your return? We want to scale up AR and AP, so accounts receivable and accounts payable. It's like, all right, we're paying vendors and then we're collecting money from customers, right? We have to start tracking both of those meticulously with more granular financial data. So we want to have more visibility into what's happening with the finances. That's why we mentioned the balance sheet, and we want to make sure that we're paying our taxes quarterly so that we are compliant. So the bottom line here is that everything is inefficient. And so we grow by doing everything better rather than more. So that was the 7th stage of optimize, which brings us to the next one, which is categorize.
All right, so stage 7, categorize. You're at 50 to 99. So we got into 50 plus all the way up to 100 companies in this range. And so you're now an executive. So you've got all these directors, you've got 3 layers of leadership underneath of you. And now we've got 1.2 million other companies here. Out of 30 million, we're already down to 1.2 million companies. So we're in already a very small percentage, 4% or less. All right, and so the constraint here for product is that the product begins to get outdated. Improvements take too long to roll out. And so to graduate, you fix one problem at a time with focused feature-specific teams. All right, so you have to prioritize, but now you're doing that same structure with more people that you're doing these priorities for. Marketing, lead flow is volatile because you only have one way to get customers. So this is typically when we recommend you start looking at that second acquisition channel. And so to graduate, you fund the second acquisition channel with 2 things to pad yourself. So you create a much stronger referral process, which we'll show you how to do. And you want to have segmented lead nurture by lead score because we've already started scoring our leads, but we're not marketing to them differently internally via email. And so as soon as we segment them, we'll get higher returns on our email, we'll get higher returns via referral. And so that extra cash, which cost us almost nothing, allows us to fund the second channel for growth. So we pick the most similar platform, and we have a whole process of how you pick what the next advertising channel you're gonna use is. So the next constraint is gonna be sales. So leads are getting wasted. all right? And they're not getting consistently worked by the team. And so to graduate, we create better schedule coverage so we get more throughput overall. We create a lead nurture checklist, and we create kudos. So a culture of working leads and shout outs for the people who have just as high show rates as close rates. From there, we go to customer service. And so at this point, customer service is only reactive. It's all firefighting. It's chaos. And so to graduate, we have to go from reactive to proactive. So we create a proactive customer journey and communication that matches with each of the milestones. And we focus on renewals and extensions at this point. So then from an IT perspective to support that, data, IP, and access are all over the place and disorganized. That's the problem here. To graduate, we create network technology. We bring solutions to the cloud. This is specific if you're in person. If you're remote, you probably are in the cloud. You get a data host, and then you centrally locate hardware if you're offsite, and if you're onsite, obviously you have a storage closet that has all the new computers and things like that. Recruiting-wise, it takes too long to hire good people, and they get hired elsewhere. And you have too many roles open to keep track of candidates and where they are in the process. Because at earlier stages, we already talked about, okay, we're gonna have multiple interviews now, and we have multiple candidates for different roles. And so you have to track all these things, and you're like, are you in interview too? Wait, you're John, I'm talking to Tim. It's completely disorganized. And so to graduate, you install an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system, to keep track of so many open roles. And so think about this just as a CRM, but for applicants. It's like a sales pipeline for candidates who are coming in. And so then on top of that, you add in specialized recruiting firms to keep up with the demand of hiring and some skill sets that you don't know how to hire yourself, or go find those pools of super specific developer or really some type of programmer, whatever, right? From there, HR is that we have too many different places for employee information and you have no data. And so to graduate, we set up an HRIS, which is a human resource information system. It's all the, who's due for a promotion? When was their last one? Who's got John's date of birth? Like, you have all this information for employees that's scattered all over the place, and it's probably not protected data. And so you put it into an HRIS to be compliant. And honestly, at this point, when you got 100 employees, you need it. Right? So finance-wise, the problem is your team starts spending your money stupidly. This happens because you're no longer the one who's spending everything. They're spending money, and they don't do it as well as you do. And so to graduate, you have to set up quarterly expense management, budgets by department, cards with limits, an expense approval process. You add in insurance coverage, and you get fancier projections. You're like, that's a lot of stuff. We cover it in a lot more depth in the deeper video. All right, so bottom line here for this stage is that every system is overwhelmed and the business is disorganized. And so to graduate, you have to triage. You have to organize stuff, and you've got to move it and say, this bucket goes here, this bucket of leads goes here, this applicants go here, these leads go here. You get organized. All right, so we just wrapped up the 8th stage, which is stage 7, categorize, which then moves us into stage 8, specialize.
All right, so specialize. This is when we really get into the big teams. We have 100 to 249 people. Your role is you're really president. You have 4 layers underneath of you, including a full-blown executive team. So you've got an executive team, usually some directors, and then usually 2 levels of management underneath at a minimum. The number of companies here, only 900,000 companies. So less than 1 million even get here. So if you're watching this video and you are already here, you are already an exception to many. What does it look like for product at this stage? At this place, product has too many features and it starts to overwhelm customers. So it starts to be this like discombobulated thing that's like a Frankenstein that is, accumulated over the years. And so in order to graduate here, we've got to survey our customers to understand what they really value. We've got to prune the product to take away the things they don't value, improve it through deletion, and then the things that we prune, they can become cross-sells, they can become add-ons, they can become things that people can buy on their own as additions to the core product. Which brings us to marketing. At this level, broader creative brings in lower quality leads and it dilutes the brand. And so our CAC goes up again because of these 2 things. And so in order to graduate, we've got to grow the brand with standardized messaging, big free value, and very big positive brand associations. So we start having to repeat our core messaging that we feel like got forgotten along the way. We have to hone in on that. And we have to make sure that we are constantly giving and pouring into the audience rather than just continuing to extract from it. Then we go into sales, right? So right now, closing efficiency on the premium product drops. Okay, and so in order to solve this and graduate, we want to route the best leads, right, that are going to buy the premium product to the best closers. Okay, and then we want to get in place automated metrics tracking to make sure that we can track everything by closer, by product, to make sure that we're routing the best leads to the best closers. Now, customer service. We have multiple customer journeys and they are conflicting or poorly timed with one another. So things are starting to route and they're starting to hit each other, right? And so we want to create proactive recommendations to cross-sell other stuff and a blended customer journey. So in the beginning, you had a customer journey for your first product, then for your second. Now you want to have one that combines all the products into one so people understand where they interact with each other. That brings us to IT. So the department outgrows general software and needs specific solutions, okay? And so there's too many internal inquiries and there's no inquiry process and we don't have any departmental policies. So to graduate, we have to get specialized tech stacks for each department and create an internal inquiry process, aka like a ticketing system for IT for each one of those tech stacks. Then we have to staff it up as needed and create departmental processes and service level agreements. Service level agreements are essentially understanding how long specific tasks take that the IT team does over and over again. Now, going into recruiting. Recruiters are holding inconsistent standards and your culture is suffering for that, right? The wrong candidates are getting too far in the process. And so what we need to do is standardize our selection process and have a founder final fit check. So I want to make sure that we have a process for how we interview and a process for how we select so that we can protect ourselves against inconsistent standards. Human resources, what does that look like? We have so many new and existing employees, performance starts to suffer, right? Just due to volume. And compliance issues and complaints start to go up. So you start to hear just negative HR stuff. And so what we want to do is we want to set up group onboarding, which you can solve with software, as well as documented performance management. So we can bring on a system or a piece of technology to help us manage performance at this point, as well as getting employee liability insurance. And we want to reinforce our cultural values. At this point, the same problem that happens in marketing, which is that we have broad messaging, happens culturally, which we have broad messaging, and it's not as potent. And so we want to reinforce the messaging, reinforce what built the company, and make sure that's getting through to all the employees at every layer. And then lastly, we have finance, which is you're still paying retail for everything, okay? And you're getting overcharged, right? Your cash is unprotected and you're not getting any returns on it. And so we want to renegotiate rates on everything. You're the big dog now, right? Okay, there's only so many companies to get to this level. You should get special treatment at this point in time. And you want to make sure that you are getting special finance roles, right? Especially like tax, to make sure that we are mitigating risk. And so we're starting to specialize our roles at this point in time. And internally, we want to make sure that we are auditing our financials on a consistent basis. This could be a yearly audit that you do from an external firm, because at this point in time, we are unprotected and we need to make sure that we have a third party protecting us, looking out for us on our behalf, because unfortunately, a lot of the things that occur that go wrong in finance happen internally, not externally. And so the bottom line is that no one is good enough to know everything, right? So we want to create dedicated people and teams for specific tasks. So we just wrapped up the 9th stage, which is stage 8, specialize. And so we will move to the last stage, which is capitalize.
All right, so stage 9 of the $100 million scaling roadmap. So now you're past 250, all the way up to 500 in headcount. Your role, you go from president to chairman. Now you've got basically product leaders, division leaders, CEOs. The terminology will change between companies, but you basically have these little mini businesses that are all revenue lines that sit in one conglomeration that you're in charge of, and you're fundamentally allocating resources between these divisions. And the number of companies here is 300,000, so it's 0.001%. Of companies who start here actually end up making it to this point. So kudos to you. It's a very big accomplishment. So the constraint for product at this level is that changes to successful products, aka cash cows, this is the main thing that made you money. This is what made you famous. This is what built the business. That changes to it at this point just make it worse. So the problem is you still need to make new stuff to grow, but you can't change your main thing. And so to graduate, you want to find your next rising star. And so you either have to buy it through M&A, mergers and acquisitions, or you want to build it through R&D, so research and development. And you need to start thinking 1, 2, 3 years out of like, what's the bet that I'm going to make with the product so that I have that thing ready right as the market needs it. Because at this point, you're so big that for someone to move the needle for you, you got to capture a market. You got to capture a whole trend. Marketing at this level, your lead attribution by channel becomes very difficult because you're marketing all over the place. You're getting leads everywhere for different types of products, different types of salespeople, and platform and regulatory compliance starts to become an issue as well. And so to graduate, you shift to brand first advertising with an omni-channel approach with blended ROAS across products, and you install a compliance process. So basically, it's like, okay, we're gonna spend $1 million every month, fine. All right, well, how much of that is top of funnel? How much of that is awareness? How much of that is brand sponsorships? How much of those things are collaborations? How much of that is investment into things that our customers will love and know about, relative to just arbitraging the ROAS of direct response, conversion optimization stuff? We got to go bigger picture at this level. Sales. So the constraint here is that there's too many leads and products for any one type of salesperson. You got way too much stuff going on. You can't just feed leads to sales guys because there's too many things for any one salesperson to learn. And so to graduate, salespeople specialize in selling different products to different leads using different processes and sometimes even in different territories. And so if you have, let's say, you're direct to consumer and then you have wholesalers, that would be a second completely different thing. And the wholesalers might be by territory, right? And so you're going to have different entire salespeople, 4 processes, 4 different products, 4 different prospects. So the constraint for customer service at this level is that support for varied new offerings is breaking due to high volume. You got a lot of stuff going on. All right, and so to graduate, you have to start triaging to specialize CS reps to improve efficiency and shorten training. And this is a common theme for both of these, is that no one can know enough. Like, you can't get somebody onboarded and they have to learn the wholesale sales process and the prospect and the products and also the direct to consumer process and prospects and sales script. It's too much. Same thing on the CS side. They can't service all these different types of customers. So you start specializing in those. IT at this level, the old tech stack is now insufficient. So you're like, wait, two steps ago, I got a new one. Well, at this point, it's probably been a few years, and you know what? It probably needs to get updated. And departments also demand new and even more specialized solutions. So to graduate, you hire more specialized tech roles for each major tech function with updated and segmented tech stacks. And you may need a new ERP or enterprise level software to kind of try and tie all these different disparate systems together. And so in the last section, the IT is like, okay, we maybe get one person to support this new tech. Now you almost have these mini departments that have to support entire departments of these new technologies that you're putting into place. And so the constraint now leads to marketing. So the best talent doesn't respond to standard recruiting efforts from anyone besides the CEO or founder. And to be clear, you're still going to be recruiting like your normal thing. You're still going to have individual contributors, managers, directors, et cetera. But the best talent in the world, the people who can really take you to the next level, they're only responding to you. And so to graduate, the founder has to start directly attracting the highest level roles, and they have to sell them. You have to sell these stars on why they should help you build your company and your vision. And this is where sometimes it's 6 months, 12 months plus of courting someone to get them to switch their entire world over to your business. For human resources to support that, so that huge amount of growth that somebody like that can bring on, churn is going to increase. You have customer churn. Well, when you got 250 employees, you might lose 5%. It's like, oh, wait, holy cow. So we're losing between 12 and a half and 25 people every single month. Oh my God. So we have to recruit 25 people just to break even on our churn. So this becomes an issue. And you don't have the right people who you need to grow. So this is where we create strategic workforce planning. So this is just fancy word for basically forecasting out the people side of growth. And so it's like, okay, what kind of capacity we're going to have? Who do we need to backfill? Where are the skill gaps within our company? What kind of redundancies do we want? What kind of redundancies do we not want? Can we shift people around? And a lot of times we're going to go from generalists to, before this we had some specialists, now to hyper specialization. Because in general, the more specialized the labor, the more productive it is, but it just takes a lot of volume to be able to get somebody to do one ticket all day long. And you can't do that in the beginning. But when you have scale, you can. And so finance at this level from a constraint perspective is that your finances aren't legit enough to get other people to give you money. So think about this in terms of raising money, borrowing money, or getting bought, like selling some of your equity. And you do all of that stuff or you want to consider doing some of that stuff so that you can make a big investment into that rising star through M&A or R&D, like we talked about earlier in product. And so to graduate, you go through what we call a prep for sale, which is you get a quality of earnings, you talk to investment bankers, they tell you all the things that are wrong with your business, you get your capital structure audited, you look at your entities, you get legal people to look at that, and then sometimes you consider hedging your big investments so that when you expand, you can actually smooth out your profit curve depending on market trends or different prices for commodities that might relate to your business. And so at this point, you can just say, cool, I'm professional enough that I've got this credit line of 20 million bucks and I can go do something big, or it's just good to have it in your back pocket because when you clean up your house, it always just makes the house better. All right. And so the bottom line at the capitalized stage is that you're not sure where the next big growth comes from. For you to get to the next level of growth, you got to make you got to capture another big market. You got to get a new product that's really going to capitalize on all the resources that you have at your disposal. And so to graduate, you make your big bet on the future. And so we just went from 0 to hero in one video. All right. And so the remainder of the videos give deeper dives into each stage. And if you want your own customized $100 million scaling roadmap, which I was referencing earlier, you can click below this video on the button. I'm not sure if it'll say that, but if you have a business, then you will be able to figure it out. And so we make these customized scaling roadmaps for you that break down the things you should look out for at this stage, what you should already have finished by this point, and what's coming up next. All right. And so we do this for you so that hopefully we can transfer as many of the lessons as we've learned throughout our careers and our portfolio companies and the thousands of companies that we've looked at over the years to you. So hopefully you can grow faster and save the world. All right. And so reminder, we recommend just using the roadmap to navigate. Otherwise, you may end up wasting time learning about things that aren't relevant yet. So I don't want you, if you got a 40-person business, don't go through the first 3 steps. It's about getting your first payment processor in place, right? And at the same point, you might not want to go to 250 to 500 because all the stuff is going to be deep dive on the types of compliance that you have to look at, and you don't want to deal with that. All right, so just try and stick to where you're at because that's fundamentally the only thing you need to focus on to get to the next level. All right, and so next up, we're going to go into the video that hopefully if you're watching this, the next one isn't going to be, unless you happen to be at 0, right? It's going to be the one that is specific to you. So go click that button, get the customized scaling framework, and click the video that is your stage and go to that one next.